My name is Autumn Reynolds, and I'm 32 years old. Today, at my father's funeral, I came face to face with my estranged sister Cassandra for the first time in 3 years. She walked in with Nathan, the man who was supposed to be my husband, dripping in diamonds and designer clothes. 5 years ago, they betrayed me in the worst possible way just days before my wedding. But life has a funny way of serving justice when you least expect it. Before I tell you how I turned my life around after the ultimate betrayal, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, and hit subscribe if you've ever had to rebuild your life after someone you trusted broke your heart. 5 years ago, my life seemed perfect. At 27, I had a thriving career as a marketing executive at one of Boston's most prestigious firms. I had just been promoted to senior account manager, handling our biggest clients. My colleagues respected me, my friends admired me, and my family was proud. But something was missing until that fateful night at the Anderson Cancer Research Foundation Gala. I wasn't even supposed to attend. My coworker Kimberly came down with the flu at the last minute, and our firm needed representation. As I walked into the ballroom in my borrowed navy blue gown, feeling slightly out of place among Boston's elite, I bumped into a tall man with kind eyes. "I'm so sorry," I apologized, horrified as my champagne splashed onto his perfectly tailored suit. He just laughed. "Don't worry about it. This jacket needed something to make it interesting." He extended his hand. Nathan Porter. I recognized the name immediately. At 32, Nathan was already making waves as a self-made tech entrepreneur. His software company, Porter Tech, had developed an innovative security system that major corporations were scrambling to implement. But despite his success, there was nothing pretentious about him. "Autumn Reynolds," I replied, shaking his hand. "And I still feel terrible about your jacket." "How about this?" he said with a smile that made his eyes crinkle at the corners. "You can make it up to me by having dinner with me tomorrow night." Our connection was immediate and intense. Nathan wasn't just successful, he was genuinely kind, thoughtful, and unpretentious despite his wealth. On our first date, he took me to a small Italian restaurant he loved, not some flashy upscale place to impress me. He asked about my dreams, my childhood, my favorite books, and actually listened to my answers. Over the next few months, our relationship blossomed. We hiked the trails around Boston on weekends, cooked elaborate meals in his spacious kitchen, and spent lazy Sundays reading together on his porch. He supported my career ambitions and never made me feel like my achievements were less significant than his. When I landed a major client, he showed up at my office with flowers and took me out to celebrate. 8 months into our relationship, Nathan suggested a weekend getaway to the White Mountains in New Hampshire. We had discovered a particular overlook on a previous hiking trip where the view of the valley below was breathtaking. As we reached that spot at sunset, Nathan turned to me. "Autumn, these past months have been the happiest of my life," he said, reaching for my hand. "You're brilliant, compassionate, and you challenge me to be better every day." When he dropped to one knee and pulled out a small velvet box, I couldn't contain my tears. "Will you marry me?" he asked, opening the box to reveal a stunning emerald-cut diamond. "Yes," I whispered, then louder, "yes." Wedding planning consumed the next few months. We booked a historic mansion overlooking the ocean for the following spring. I found a gorgeous vintage-inspired gown that made me feel like a princess. Nathan and I agreed on everything from the flowers, wildflowers in blues and purples, to the cake, lemon with buttercream frosting. We wrote our own vows and selected readings that reflected our values. Everything was falling into place. Throughout this time, my relationship with my younger sister Cassandra remained complicated. Growing up, Cassandra had always been competitive with me, constantly seeking our parents' attention and approval. If I joined the debate team, she would too, then work tirelessly to outperform me. When I was accepted to Boston University, she applied to Harvard and never let me forget her superior choice. As adults, our relationship had become strained and superficial. We'd exchange pleasantries at family gatherings, but rarely connected on a deeper level. At 25, Cassandra was working as a paralegal while applying to law schools. She cycled through relationships quickly, often dating men who treated her poorly. When I told my family about my engagement, everyone was thrilled except Cassandra, who offered a tight smile and brief congratulations. Despite our troubled history, I wanted my sister at my wedding. I hoped that including her in this important day might help heal our relationship. So, against my better judgment, I asked Cassandra to be one of my bridesmaids. Really, she asked, seeming genuinely surprised. You want me in your wedding? Of course, I said. You're my sister. She hugged me then, something she rarely did. I'd be honored, she said. Looking back, I should have noticed the strange gleam in her eyes. The first red flag appeared about 3 months before the wedding. Cassandra had become unusually invested in the wedding details, texting Nathan directly with questions about the ceremony and reception rather than going through me. Why is my sister texting you about the seating chart? I asked Nathan one evening as we were making dinner. He shrugged, stirring the pasta sauce. She said she wanted to surprise you with something for the reception and needed some information. I thought you knew. I frowned. She hasn't mentioned anything to me. It's probably nothing, Nathan assured me. Maybe she's planning a speech or slideshow. I tried to brush it off, but something felt off. Over the following weeks, Nathan's behavior began to change in subtle ways. He started working later than usual. Our nightly phone calls when he traveled for business grew shorter, with him claiming exhaustion. When we were together, he seemed distracted, checking his phone more frequently. One Saturday, my parents hosted a family dinner. Cassandra arrived 45 minutes late, wearing a form-fitting red dress that seemed excessive for a casual family gathering. Throughout the evening, she positioned herself next to Nathan, touching his arm when she laughed at his jokes, leaning in too close when he spoke. Is everything okay with you and Nathan? My friend Diane asked me at brunch the following week. You seem tense when you talk about him. We're fine, I insisted. Just wedding stress. But that night, I confronted Nathan. Have you noticed Cassandra acting differently around you? She seems very attentive. Nathan looked surprised. She's just being friendly, Autumn. I think she's lonely and looking up to our relationship as an example. You're overthinking this because you're stressed about the wedding. I wanted to believe him, but the nagging feeling persisted. A few days later, I tried talking to Cassandra directly. I've noticed you and Nathan have been texting a lot, I said carefully, meeting her for coffee. Her eyes narrowed slightly before her expression softened into concern. Oh, Autumn. I'm just trying to help with the wedding. Are you getting cold feet? Or don't you trust Nathan? Of course I trust Nathan, I said quickly. And I appreciate your help. It just seemed like there was something else going on. Cassandra reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You're being paranoid. Nathan adores you. I'm just trying to be a good sister and bridesmaid. Her words reassured me temporarily, but that night, as Nathan slept beside me, I couldn't help checking his phone. I found several texts from Cassandra, most about wedding details, but one caught my eye. Thanks for lunch today. It was nice to talk about everything. You're easy to open up to. They'd had lunch? Nathan hadn't mentioned meeting Cassandra. When I asked him about it the next morning, he seemed irritated. It was nothing, he said, not meeting my eyes. She was near my office and wanted to discuss some surprise for you. I didn't mention it because I didn't want to ruin the surprise. I nodded, choosing to believe him. After all, we were getting married in less than 2 months. I had already addressed and mailed the invitations, finalized the menu, and had my final dress fitting scheduled. Our honeymoon to the Greek islands was booked and paid for. Nathan and I had even put a deposit down on a house in a quiet suburb outside Boston. Surely these small doubts were just wedding jitters. But the sleepless nights continued. I'd lie awake, listening to Nathan's steady breathing, wondering why my instincts were screaming that something was wrong when everything seemed right on the surface. During the day, I'd throw myself into work and wedding planning, pushing the doubts aside. But they always returned in quiet moments. A week before the wedding, Nathan left for a 3-day business trip to New York. The night before he was due back, I found myself staring at the newest text from Cassandra on his iPad, which he'd left at home. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. We need to talk about us." Us? What us could there possibly be between my sister and my fiancé? Despite the alarm bells ringing in my head, I decided to give them both the benefit of the doubt. Maybe this was all an innocent misunderstanding. Maybe us referred to some wedding surprise they were planning together. Maybe I was letting my lifelong complicated relationship with Cassandra color my perception. I went to bed that night determined to trust the man I loved, pushing down the fear that threatened to consume me. Nathan's business trip was supposed to end Thursday evening. He texted that his flight was delayed and he wouldn't be home until late, suggesting I not wait up. By Friday morning, he still wasn't home, claiming he'd stayed at a hotel near the airport due to the late arrival. It seemed reasonable enough, but combined with everything else, it left me uneasy. I decided to leave work early that Friday to prepare a special dinner for us. We needed to reconnect before our wedding week began. On my way home, I stopped to pick up ingredients for Nathan's favorite meal, steak with roasted potatoes and a chocolate souffle for dessert. As I drove through Cassandra's neighborhood, a shortcut to the gourmet market, a familiar car caught my eye. Nathan's sleek black Audi was parked outside her apartment building. My heart began to race. Maybe he was dropping off wedding materials. Maybe there was an innocent explanation. I parked across the street, telling myself I would just check and then continue on my way, feeling foolish for my suspicions. But as I approached the building, something compelled me to try the front door. Someone was exiting, and I slipped in before it closed. Cassandra lived on the 3rd floor. Each step up the stairs felt like moving through molasses. When I reached her door, I stood frozen, unsure what to do. Then I heard it, Nathan's distinctive laugh, followed by my sister's voice, too muffled to make out the words. I don't remember deciding to knock. I don't remember exactly what I said when Cassandra opened the door, her hair disheveled, wearing only a man's button-down shirt that I recognized as Nathan's. What I do remember is the look on Nathan's face when he emerged from the bedroom, wearing just his pants. Not guilt. Not shame. Just annoyance at being discovered. "How long?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady despite feeling like my world was imploding. "Autumn, this isn't what it looks like," Nathan began, the most cliched lie possible. 3 months, Cassandra answered simultaneously, a small, satisfied smile playing at her lips. "It just happened, Autumn. We didn't mean to hurt you." "Didn't mean to hurt me?" I repeated, the words feeling foreign in my mouth. "You're sleeping with my fiancé a week before our wedding, and you didn't mean to hurt me?" "You don't understand," Nathan said, reaching for me. "Things between you and me haven't been right for a while. Cassandra and we connect on a different level." I stepped back from his touch. "Were you going to tell me before I walked down the aisle, or were you planning to go through with the wedding?" Their exchanged glance told me everything I needed to know. "I was going to talk to you this weekend," Nathan claimed. I just needed to figure out how to say it. "How considerate," I said, the shock giving way to a cold fury. "Let me make it easy for you. The wedding is off. You two deserve each other." I turned to leave, but Cassandra's words stopped me. "Don't be dramatic, Autumn. These things happen." Nathan and I couldn't help falling in love. I looked at my sister, my flesh and blood, and saw no remorse in her eyes, only triumph. "You've always been jealous of me," I said quietly. "But I never thought you'd stoop this low." The next week passed in a blur of pain and humiliation. I had to call every guest and explain that the wedding was canceled. I returned gifts and canceled vendors, losing thousands in deposits. My parents were devastated, caught between their 2 daughters. "She's still your sister," my mother said tearfully when I declared I would never speak to Cassandra again. "Family is family." "She stopped being my sister the moment she decided to betray me," I replied. The worst came just 2 weeks after I discovered their affair. Nathan and Cassandra announced they were officially a couple. They didn't have the decency to be discreet, posting pictures of themselves at restaurants and events, looking blissfully happy. I spiraled into depression. I took a leave of absence from work, unable to focus or function. I barely ate or slept. Friends tried to help, but I pushed everyone away, too ashamed and broken to accept comfort. The night that would have been my wedding day, I found myself alone in the hotel suite where Nathan and I had planned to spend our first night as husband and wife. I couldn't bear to cancel that reservation. It felt like admitting final defeat. So I sat there on the king-sized bed, still in my work clothes, staring at the bottle of champagne the hotel had provided as a congratulatory gift. I'd hit rock bottom. As I looked at my reflection in the mirror, hollow eyes, unwashed hair, a shadow of the vibrant woman I once was, something shifted inside me. Nathan and Cassandra had taken enough from me. I wouldn't let them take anything more. The healing process began slowly. 6 months after the betrayal, I was still struggling, but had started seeing a therapist who specialized in trauma and betrayal. Dr. Madison helped me understand that what happened wasn't my fault. Betrayal by those closest to us is one of the deepest wounds we can experience, she explained during one session. Your reaction isn't unusual or unhealthy. It's grief. With her guidance, I began to rebuild my life. The first major decision was leaving Boston. Too many memories lingered there, and I kept encountering mutual friends who looked at me with pity or, worse, curiosity about the scandal. When a headhunting firm contacted me about a position in Chicago with a struggling marketing agency needing new leadership, it felt like the universe offering a lifeline. The job would be challenging. The agency had lost several major clients and needed a complete rebrand, but it offered exactly what I needed, a fresh start far from Nathan and Cassandra. "Are you sure about this?" my father asked when I told my parents about my decision. "Moving so far away from your support system?" "I need this, Dad," I explained. "I need to be somewhere where I'm not poor Autumn who got dumped for her sister." 2 weeks later, I was settling into a small but charming apartment in Chicago's Lincoln Park neighborhood. The new city energized me. Nobody knew my history or treated me like damaged goods. At Morrison & Bell Marketing, I could be defined by my abilities rather than my heartbreak. My new colleagues were welcoming, especially Madison, a graphic designer who became my first real friend in Chicago. She invited me to a book club, which became a lifeline of normalcy and female friendship. "You need to meet us for drinks at Lakeview Tavern tonight," Madison insisted one Friday, about 3 months after my move. "The team from Blackwood Creative will be there, and rumor has it they're poaching our North Star Hotels account." Know thy enemy, right? That night, across a crowded bar, I first laid eyes on Gabriel Mitchell. As creative director at our rival agency, he should have been my adversary. Tall with thoughtful hazel eyes and a quiet confidence, he caught me staring and raised his glass in acknowledgement. Later, he approached me at the bar. "You must be Autumn Reynolds, Morrison & Bell's new secret weapon." "I'm Gabriel Mitchell." "Not so secret if you know who I am," I replied. He smiled. Chicago's marketing world is small. Word travels fast when someone talented blows in from the East Coast. Gabriel was different from Nathan in every way. Where Nathan had been charismatic and outgoing, Gabriel was thoughtful and measured. He asked insightful questions and listened intently to my answers. By the end of the evening, we developed a grudging professional respect for each other, despite working for competing agencies. Over the following months, we encountered each other at industry events and client meetings. Our agencies were often bidding for the same projects, turning us into professional rivals. Yet each interaction left me increasingly intrigued by him. Despite this growing attraction, I kept Gabriel at arm's length. The thought of trusting someone again terrified me. My therapist encouraged me to take small steps toward opening myself to new connections, but romantic entanglements felt too risky. Instead, I focused on rebuilding other aspects of my life. I joined a cycling club, discovered a passion for photography, and volunteered at a local animal shelter. Each new activity helped me rediscover parts of myself that had been overshadowed in my relationship with Nathan. 6 months into my Chicago life, Gabriel approached me after we both spoke on a panel at a marketing conference. "I've been meaning to ask if you'd like to have dinner sometime," he said. "Not to discuss work. Just dinner." My immediate instinct was panic. "I appreciate the offer, but I'm not dating right now." He nodded, seeming unsurprised. "Fair enough. The invitation stands if you change your mind." Walking away, I felt a confusing mix of relief and regret. Part of me wanted to turn around and accept, but the wounded part, still raw and tender, couldn't take the risk. That night, I called Dr. Madison for an emergency session. "What are you afraid will happen if you have dinner with him?" she asked. "That I'll like him," I admitted. "That I'll trust him. That he'll betray me too." "Autumn, not everyone is Nathan or Cassandra," she said gently. "By closing yourself off from all possibilities, you're letting them continue to control your life." Her words stayed with me, but I wasn't ready. Not yet. First, I needed to feel completely whole on my own. A year after moving to Chicago, I barely recognized my life, or myself. Morrison and Bell had transformed under my leadership from a struggling agency to one of the city's most innovative firms. We'd retained our existing clients and added several major accounts. The staff had nearly doubled, and we'd moved to larger offices with views of Lake Michigan. Professionally, I was thriving. Personally, I was still cautious but healing. I maintained minimal contact with my family, speaking to my parents monthly, but completely cutting off Cassandra. Through social media, I occasionally glimpsed her life with Nathan, vacation photos in tropical locations, her wearing expensive jewelry, always perfectly styled. I'd trained myself not to react to these images, though sometimes the pain would resurface unexpectedly. In early spring, Chicago hosted the Midwest Marketing Summit, where I was scheduled to speak about digital strategy. As I reviewed my presentation in the hotel conference room, a familiar voice interrupted my concentration. "Your slide on multi-platform integration is missing data from the Henderson study." I looked up to find Gabriel leaning against the doorframe, a teasing smile on his face. "The Henderson study has methodological flaws," I countered. "And shouldn't you be preparing your own presentation instead of critiquing mine?" He laughed. "Mine's ready to go." And I was offering helpful feedback, not criticism. Over the 2-day conference, Gabriel and I found ourselves gravitating toward each other. We debated industry trends over coffee, exchanged notes during sessions, and ended up sitting together at the awards dinner, where Morrison and Bell won Agency of the Year, beating out Gabriel's Blackwood Creative. "Congratulations," he said sincerely as I returned from accepting the award. "You deserved it." Later that evening, as the event wound down, Gabriel asked, "Is that dinner invitation still off the table?" Something had shifted in me. Over the past year, I'd observed Gabriel's integrity, kindness, and authenticity. He wasn't Nathan. And I wasn't the same broken woman who'd arrived in Chicago. "Actually," I replied, "I think I'd like that dinner." Our first date was nothing fancy, just a small neighborhood Italian restaurant Gabriel loved. But the conversation flowed effortlessly for hours. For the first time, I shared the full story of Nathan and Cassandra's betrayal. "That explains a lot," Gabriel said when I finished. "I've wondered why someone as remarkable as you seemed so reluctant to connect with people." "Your turn," I said, feeling strangely unburdened after sharing my story. "What's your baggage?" He smiled ruefully. "Is it that obvious I have some?" "Everyone does at our age." Gabriel revealed that he'd been married briefly in his late 20s. His ex-wife had cheated with his business partner, eventually leaving with both Gabriel's trust and a significant portion of his client base. "So we're both members of the Betrayed by Those Closest to Us club," I said. "Not the most exclusive club, unfortunately," he replied. "But at least the membership benefits include hard-earned wisdom." Over the following months, Gabriel and I built a relationship founded on mutual respect and understanding of each other's wounds. We moved slowly, both conscious of our trust issues. He never pushed for more than I was ready to give, and I tried to remain open rather than letting past hurts dictate my actions. 6 months into our relationship, Gabriel was offered a position as executive creative director at a prestigious New York agency. I turned it down, he told me over dinner at my apartment. "Why would you do that?" "It's an amazing opportunity." He reached for my hand. "Because what I'm building here, with you, matters more." That night, as we discussed our future, Gabriel suggested something unexpected. "What if we started our own agency together? With your strategic mind and my creative approach, we could build something exceptional." The idea took root, and 3 months later, Mitchell & Reynolds Creative was born. We rented a small office space, brought on Madison from my former agency and 2 trusted colleagues from Gabriel's team, and launched with just 2 clients who believed in our vision. Through countless late nights, working weekends, and moments of doubt, we built our business. Gabriel and I balanced each other perfectly. I handled the business strategy and client relationships while he led the creative direction. Our small agency quickly developed a reputation for innovative campaigns that delivered measurable results. Around this time, I discovered through my mother that Nathan's company was struggling. His revolutionary security software had failed to evolve with emerging threats, and competitors had developed superior alternatives. Meanwhile, Cassandra regularly posted photos of their luxurious lifestyle, designer clothes, expensive restaurants, exotic vacations. I wondered if it was all for show. As our relationship deepened, Gabriel and I discussed marriage. Unlike my whirlwind engagement to Nathan, this decision came after 2 years of building a solid foundation together. Gabriel proposed on an ordinary Tuesday evening as we worked late in our office, spreadsheets and design mock-ups scattered around us. "This isn't the romantic proposal you deserve," he said, producing a simple but elegant emerald-cut diamond ring, so different from the flashy one Nathan had given me. "But I realized I don't want to spend another day without asking you to be my wife." We married 6 months later in a small ceremony on the shores of Lake Michigan, attended only by our closest friends and my parents. We didn't want an elaborate event, just an authentic celebration of our commitment. After exchanging vows, we hosted a dinner at our favorite restaurant, followed by dancing under the stars on the restaurant's rooftop garden. Our honeymoon was a working trip to London, where we met with potential international clients. We were building something together, not just a marriage, but a legacy. Within 3 years, Mitchell & Reynolds had grown from 5 employees to 30, with offices in Chicago and Seattle. Gabriel's creative vision paired with my strategic approach attracted major clients and industry recognition. Then came the phone call that would bring the past rushing back into my carefully reconstructed life. My father had been diagnosed with late-stage pancreatic cancer. The prognosis was grim, 3 to 6 months at most. "You should come home," my mother said, her voice breaking. "He wants the family together while he can still enjoy it." Family. The word hung in the air. "Will Cassandra be there?" "She's your sister, Autumn. And your father is dying. Can't you set aside the past for his sake?" For my father's sake, I agreed to return to Boston. Gabriel, understanding the complexity of the situation, cleared his schedule to accompany me. "Whatever happens," he assured me, "we'll face it together." Gabriel and I purchased a small but elegant townhouse near my parents' home in Boston's Beacon Hill neighborhood. Though our primary residence remained in Chicago, we needed a place to stay during my father's final months. Our business was stable enough that we could work remotely, with occasional flights back to Chicago for important meetings. My first reunion with my father was heartrending. Always robust and energetic, he had become frail, his skin yellowed from jaundice, his once strong frame diminished. But his eyes lit up when he saw me, and when I introduced him to Gabriel, he managed a warm smile. "So this is the man who helped my daughter find her smile again," he said, shaking Gabriel's hand. "I've been looking forward to meeting you." In those first weeks, we established a routine. Gabriel and I would work mornings from our townhouse, then spend afternoons and evenings with my parents. I cooked my father's favorite meals when he felt well enough to eat. Gabriel read to him from cherished books when fatigue overtook him. We helped my mother with practical matters, organizing medications, managing household tasks, dealing with insurance paperwork. Cassandra and Nathan remained conspicuously absent, though my mother mentioned they had visited twice since the diagnosis. According to her, they were very busy with work and travel commitments. One evening, as my father rested, my mother broached the subject I'd been avoiding. "Your sister will be coming for dinner tomorrow," she said. "With Nathan." My body tensed involuntarily. "Mom, I don't think." "Please, Autumn," she interrupted, her exhaustion evident. "Your father doesn't have much time left. He wants to see his family together before he goes. Can you do this for him?" How could I refuse? Of course, I agreed. But don't expect a warm reunion. That night, Gabriel held me as I processed the impending confrontation. "Remember who you are now," he said softly. "Their presence can only affect you if you give them that power." The next day, I prepared myself mentally for seeing Cassandra and Nathan. Gabriel and I arrived early to help my mother prepare dinner. She seemed nervous, continuously checking the clock and rearranging the table settings. At precisely 6 o'clock, the doorbell rang. My mother hurried to answer while I remained in the kitchen, steadying my breathing. Gabriel squeezed my hand reassuringly. Cassandra entered first, impeccably dressed in a designer outfit, diamonds glittering at her ears and throat. Nathan followed, looking older than I remembered, lines of stress evident around his eyes despite his tailored suit and practiced smile. An awkward silence fell over the room until my mother said brightly, "Let's all sit down. Your father is waiting in the dining room." The dinner that followed was a masterclass in strained civility. We focused conversation on my father, avoiding any meaningful interaction between Cassandra and me. Nathan barely spoke, seeming uncomfortable in my presence. Gabriel was gracious but reserved, observing the dynamics carefully. After dessert, my father asked to speak privately with me in his study. Once the door closed behind us, he took my hand in his trembling one. "I know this is difficult for you," he said, his voice weak. "But I need to say something before I go. I've always regretted not standing more firmly with you after what happened. Your mother and I were so shocked, so caught between our daughters, that we tried to remain neutral. That was wrong." Tears filled my eyes. "Dad, you don't need to." "I do," he insisted. "What Cassandra and Nathan did was inexcusable. I should have made that clear. Instead, I tried to keep the peace, and in doing so, I failed you." He squeezed my hand. "I'm so proud of the woman you've become, Autumn. You've built a beautiful life from the ashes of their betrayal. Your Gabriel is worth 10 of Nathan." His words healed something in me I hadn't realized was still broken. We embraced, both crying quietly before rejoining the others. In the following weeks, my father's condition deteriorated rapidly. Hospice nurses began coming daily, and we all knew the end was near. Despite my reluctance, I maintained civil interaction with Cassandra during her increasingly frequent visits. We operated in parallel, both loving our father but unable to bridge the chasm between us. During this time, Gabriel and I received extraordinary news. A major international conglomerate wanted to acquire our agency for a sum that would make us financially independent for life. After careful negotiation, we agreed to the acquisition with conditions that allowed us to maintain creative control while stepping back from day-to-day operations. We hadn't shared this development with my family, focusing instead on my father's care. The timing seemed inappropriate for celebrating our success. My father passed peacefully on a Sunday morning in early autumn, with my mother, Cassandra, and me at his bedside. Despite our differences, we were united in grief, at least momentarily. The funeral was scheduled for the following Friday. Gabriel and I spent the intervening days helping my mother with arrangements, receiving condolence calls, and preparing for the influx of family and friends. The morning of the funeral dawned clear and crisp, my father's favorite kind of day. As we dressed in our somber attire, Gabriel reminded me, "Whatever happens today, remember that your father was proud of you. That's what matters." I nodded, steeling myself for the inevitable confrontation with Cassandra and Nathan. Something told me that the fragile truce of my father's final days wouldn't survive his burial. The funeral service was beautiful in its simplicity. My father, never one for ostentation, had requested a brief ceremony with his favorite poetry readings and classical music rather than religious hymns. The historic church was filled beyond capacity, a testament to the many lives he had touched as a beloved pediatrician. Gabriel sat beside me in the front pew, his steady presence anchoring me through waves of grief. My mother sat on my other side, clutching my hand. Cassandra and Nathan were seated beside her, Cassandra dabbing at her eyes with a lace handkerchief while Nathan maintained a solemn expression. After the service, we proceeded to the cemetery for a private interment, followed by a reception at my parents' home. The house quickly filled with friends, colleagues, and extended family offering condolences and sharing memories of my father. I was speaking with my father's oldest friend when I felt a hand on my arm. Turning, I found Cassandra standing there, Nathan slightly behind her. Both were impeccably dressed, as always. Cassandra's fingers glittered with diamond rings, and a substantial diamond pendant hung around her neck. "Can we speak privately?" she asked, her voice honeyed with false sincerity. Gabriel caught my eye from across the room, silently asking if I needed him. I gave a slight nod, and he discreetly made his way toward us. "Of course," I replied, leading them to my father's study, now painfully empty without his presence. Once the door closed, Cassandra's demeanor changed. The grief-stricken daughter act dropped away, replaced by the smug superiority I remembered all too well. "So," she began, looking around the book-lined room, "still working in marketing? Nathan tells me small agencies like yours are struggling in the current economy." Before I could respond, she continued, "We've just returned from Paris." Nathan had a business conference, but we extended it into a little vacation. The suite at the Ritz was divine. She fingered her diamond pendant meaningfully. "Anniversary gift." Nathan shifted uncomfortably but said nothing, his eyes not meeting mine. "How nice for you," I said neutrally. Cassandra stepped closer, her voice dropping. "Look at you, Autumn. 5 years later, and what do you have to show for yourself? A tiny apartment in Chicago? A struggling business? Meanwhile, I'm living the life that was supposed to be yours." She glanced at my simple black dress. "No designer labels? No fine jewelry? Poor you, still alone. And I'm bathing in luxury." A soft knock at the door interrupted her cruelty. Gabriel entered, carrying 2 glasses of water. "Thought you might need these," he said, handing one to me. "Thank you," I said, taking the glass. "Nathan, Cassandra, I don't believe you formally met my husband, Gabriel Mitchell." Cassandra's expression faltered slightly. "Husband? You're married." 2 years now, Gabriel confirmed, standing beside me. "It's a pleasure to finally meet Autumn's family, though I wish it were under better circumstances." Nathan extended his hand automatically. "Nathan Porter. This is my wife, Cassandra." Gabriel shook his hand firmly. "Porter? From Porter Tech?" I thought the name sounded familiar. Nathan seemed surprised at the recognition. "Yes, that's right." "You're familiar with our security systems." "Very," Gabriel replied. "In fact, Mitchell and Reynolds just acquired the Brooks Media portfolio last month. Your company came up during the transition discussions." Nathan's face paled visibly. Gabriel had just casually mentioned that our agency had acquired one of the largest media conglomerates in the country, a deal worth billions that had been covered extensively in business news. Mitchell and Reynolds? Cassandra repeated, looking confused. That's your company? Our company, I corrected gently. Gabriel and I founded it together 3 years ago. But that's impossible, Nathan interjected, his composure slipping. Mitchell and Reynolds just purchased controlling interest in EdgeCore Systems last week. That's a multi-billion-dollar acquisition. Gabriel nodded. It's been a busy month for us. The ink is barely dry on that deal. Understanding dawned on Cassandra's face as she realized what this meant. Gabriel wasn't just my husband, he was now effectively Nathan's boss. EdgeCore Systems had recently acquired the failing Porter Tech after its revolutionary security software had become obsolete. You own my company? Nathan asked, his voice hollow. Technically, EdgeCore owns Porter Tech, Gabriel clarified. And we own EdgeCore. But we're not involved in day-to-day operations anymore. The acquisition of your parent company was purely a portfolio decision. Cassandra's hand went instinctively to her diamond necklace, twisting it nervously. Nathan, what does this mean for us? Nathan's silence spoke volumes. Gabriel and I exchanged glances, a wordless communication born of years of partnership. If you'll excuse us, I said quietly, there are guests waiting. As we turned to leave, Cassandra grabbed my arm. Wait, you can't just walk away. Do you have any idea what we're going through? Nathan's company has been struggling for years. These diamonds, she touched her earrings, they're fake. The luxury vacations? All charged to credit cards we can barely make minimum payments on. We're drowning in debt, trying to maintain appearances. Nathan looked mortified at his wife's confession. Cassandra, please. No, Nathan. I'm tired of pretending. We haven't been happy in years. You've been distracted, distant. Working constantly to try to save a sinking ship while I post carefully staged photos to make everyone think we're living a dream life. She turned to me, desperation in her eyes. Is that what you wanted to hear, Autumn? That your perfect sister's life is a sham. In that moment, looking at Cassandra's desperate face and Nathan's defeated posture, I felt no satisfaction, only sadness for the years wasted on appearances and rivalry. I never wanted this for you, I said honestly. I wanted you to be happy, even after what you did. That's the difference between us, Cassandra. Your happiness has always depended on what you have compared to others. Mine comes from within. A gentle knock interrupted us. My mother entered, her eyes red-rimmed, but her composure intact. The attorney is here, she said softly. He'd like to read your father's letter to the family. We gathered in the living room, the guests having departed except for the closest family members. The attorney, a colleague of my father's for decades, removed an envelope from his briefcase. Your father wrote this in his final weeks, he explained. He asked that I read it to all of you today. As the attorney read my father's words, the room fell silent. He spoke of his love for his family, his hopes for reconciliation between his daughters, and his reflections on what constitutes a successful life. True wealth, my father had written, isn't measured in bank accounts or possessions, but in how genuinely you love and are loved in return. Success isn't about outshining others, but about lighting your own path with integrity and purpose. My greatest hope is that my daughters will heal the rift between them and remember that no achievement or material possession is worth the price of family. Tears streamed down my face as I listened. Gabriel's hand found mine, squeezing gently. Across the room, I noticed Cassandra crying as well, Nathan sitting stiffly beside her, his expression unreadable. After the reading, as people began to disperse, I found myself alone with my mother in the kitchen. He loved you both so much, she said, arranging leftover food into containers. It broke his heart to see you estranged. I know, Mom, I replied, helping her with the task. But some wounds don't heal easily. She paused, looking at me intently. Your father wasn't perfect, Autumn. Neither am I. We should have taken a stronger stand when Cassandra betrayed you. We were so afraid of losing either of you that we ended up compromising our own values. Can you forgive us for that?" I embraced her, feeling the frailty of her shoulders. "There's nothing to forgive. You were caught in an impossible situation." As the evening wound down, Gabriel and I prepared to leave. In the foyer, we encountered Cassandra and Nathan doing the same. An awkward silence fell until Cassandra spoke. "Your agency, is it really as successful as Nathan says?" "It is," Gabriel confirmed. "We've been fortunate." "And you're happy?" she asked, looking directly at me. "Truly happy?" "Yes," I said simply. "I am." Something shifted in her expression, a mixture of realization and regret. "I've made a mess of everything, haven't I? Not just with Nathan, but with you. With my whole life." Nathan looked away, unable to meet anyone's eyes. "It's not too late to start over," I said quietly. "That's what I did." Cassandra nodded slowly. "Maybe?" She hesitated, then added, "I'm sorry, Autumn. For everything. I know that doesn't change anything, but I need to say it." It wasn't a magical reconciliation. Years of hurt couldn't be erased with one apology. But it was a beginning, a small crack in the wall between us. "Thank you for saying that," I replied. "It means something." 1 year later, we gathered again in Boston for the holidays. Much had changed. Cassandra and Nathan had separated, their marriage unable to survive the strain of financial problems and long-simmering resentments. Cassandra had moved into a modest apartment and begun working as a paralegal again, finally pursuing the law degree she'd abandoned years ago. At my mother's holiday dinner, Cassandra approached me as I helped in the kitchen. "I've been in therapy," she said, peeling potatoes alongside me. "Working through a lot of things. My jealousy of you. My need for validation. It's been illuminating." "That takes courage," I acknowledged. "I don't expect us to ever be close again," she continued. "But I'd like to try to be something better than enemies." As Gabriel and I drove back to our hotel that night, he asked, "How do you feel about Cassandra's olive branch?" I considered the question carefully. Cautiously optimistic. Real forgiveness takes time. But I'm ready to stop letting the past dictate my future. Gabriel smiled. "That's why I love you. Your capacity for growth is extraordinary." Back in our room, I reflected on the journey of the past 5 years, from betrayal and heartbreak to healing and triumph. The path hadn't been easy or straightforward, but every step had led me to where I belonged. The greatest revenge wasn't in acquiring more wealth than Nathan and Cassandra, or in seeing their marriage crumble. It was in building a life of authentic happiness and purpose, one they couldn't touch or tarnish, no matter what they did. Some people spend their lives chasing external validation, believing happiness comes from what others think of them. But true fulfillment comes from within, from loving deeply, working with purpose, and living with integrity. That was my father's final lesson to us all, and the one I carried forward as his most precious legacy. What about you? Have you ever had to rebuild your life after betrayal? What helped you move forward? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more stories about resilience and authentic success. Remember, the best revenge isn't getting even, it's living well. Thank you for listening, and may your own journey lead you to genuine happiness, however winding the path may be.